This is Vibe Science, a top 100 wellness podcast presented by the Radcast Network, breaking wellness barriers and making health truly personal. Here are your hosts, Ryan Alford and Chris Hansen.
Hello, and welcome to Vibe Science. We're always taking you to your highest vibes. It's mind, body, and energy at the end of the day. You can't have one without the other. You got to have it all there. You could have a six-pack and your head's in the dump. You could have your head all together and you got that dad bod or that mom bod. So we're here to bring it all together for you. That's what we're here to do. Got my good partner, my good friend down in Miami, Chris Hansen. What's up, Chris?
What's up, Brian? Stoked for today, big dog.
I know, man. Ready to get the vibes going. You know, I'm ready to talk men's relationship coaching. You know, like, hey, we've had a variety of guests. We have men, women, all this stuff, but now we get to be a little selfish today, Chris. We get to get the expert. His name is Jason Schnitzer. He is a men's relationship coach, and he's here with us today. What's up, Jason?
What's going on, guys? Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited. I mean, I've already, we talked pre-episode, and I'm like sitting here, like getting into a trance. Jason has a very calming effect, and I'm going, and being a man and doing these things, he's talking about these topics. I'm like, yep, that's true. That's right. So if you're out there, here's how you look at it. Man, woman, doesn't matter. If you're a woman, you can listen to this and know what your man's going through. If you're a man, you can learn and apply. So lots of different ways to look at it. Jason, Orange County. You've been impacted by any of the stuff going on out there? I mean, I don't know how you wouldn't be, at least on some level.
Yeah, I mean, thanks for asking. Fortunately, I'm about an hour south from the craziness. So other than a few days of, it not being fun to go outside and having to wash my car a little bit extra than normal, I'm one of the fortunate few out here to not be really impacted by that. So
yeah. Hearts go out, prayers go out, everything. It always sounds shallow. I feel like I sound shallow saying, and I'm over here in South Carolina going, oh, hearts and prayers. But I mean it, like shit's real. And so you can only, but at the end of the day, unless you're in the thick of it, it's hard to sort of like get in someone else's shoes. So send the love out there. Jason, what's cooking, man? You seem like a busy guy. I think Chris found you on the old IG gram, and, I've been digging it. I like the format as a brand and marketing guy. I'm like, I like this look,
Yeah.
So what's been happening?
Yeah. Well, I mean, what's been happening is like more and more I'm out there and like moving and shaking and cooking, as you guys say, the more I'm noticing just like this like missing gap in the market of, and really it's just like men being underserved and, underprepared to get into what pretty much every single person wants to get into at some point in their life, maybe, which is a long-term relationship or marriage. And being 5, 10, 15 years down the road, and then all of a sudden noticing that you're kind of like caught in these cycles or these patterns that are showing up, and not knowing what to do about it, not knowing where to go or where to turn to, and kind of like, I'd say like generally speaking, the therapy world is not necessarily catered towards men, and it's a very, woman, feminine dominated industry. So yeah, I've just been doing my best to put the bat signal out there for guys that are kind of like going through it and just like looking and searching for the things that I was looking and searching for, and putting it out there in a way that resonates with people. So, we can help people with tools that I think, quite honestly, should be something that like should be in schools in a degree, or at least like more readily available for more guys.
Yeah. I mean, it does seem, I grew up with military fathers, and my dad's still modern. I mean, he wasn't like a tyrant or something, but he was, I think growing up as men, especially, I mean, I'm 47. So, it's, I don't know, that era was like, just tough it out,
Yeah.
or be tough, whatever. And I do it with my kids too, because sometimes I do think, it's a little coddled. So I try to bring back maybe some of the, like if the pendulum swings directionally, it seems like But I don't know that it's hard or soft or those kind of things. I think it's more what I like with what you're doing, which is sort of like getting to the root of things and getting underneath stuff. Because I think a lot of the tough, soft is kind of surface level.
Yeah.
And I think where you're going and what you're helping with is what gets buried underneath, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, absolutely. And like, if we're like talking about like, parent to child, if you will, like hard, soft, it's like, the thing is that you need both. And like, what I'm after is the root, which is like, what's appropriate for like, let's just say the age or the situation. Cause, basically, little 101, basically like, you have a nervous system and you have a brain, two main things that kind of make up who you are. Right. And your nervous system gets wired basically from forever. It's never not being wired, but a big chunk of what gets wired is between the ages of 0 and 7. Right. And your brain isn't fully done developing until you're 25, at least the most important part, which is your prefrontal cortex. Right. So it's like in the early ages of most people's lives where kids are like, just like experiencing things for the first time. They're really developing like a sense of like, hey, what's safe and what's dangerous, what's right and what's wrong. And they get most of those cues from their caretakers, right? Mom and dad usually. And what a lot of people don't know is like, let's just say, between the ages of 5 and 10, your prefrontal, which by the way is responsible for all things like that you need to be like a smart, intelligent human, your executive functioning, right? Delayed gratification, your ability to like make a decision now based on the future, like extrapolate it out. Let's say your ability to regulate your emotions and your emotional state. All that stuff doesn't really come online. You're not a full-fledged human being, if you will, until you're 25 years old, right? So going back to the idea of between ages of 5 and 10, it's like that's like online between 25 and 50%. Right. And when you talk about like the whole idea of like a gentle parent versus like, let's just say harsher parenting and disciplinary, what it is more of an idea of like, what is appropriate right now for my kid to be able to like make their world normalized so that like, as they go through an experience, they are like, oh, like what I'm going through is normal. Like, for example, a 5-year-old or a 3-year-old, like they're going to have lots of tantrums, right? And that's not because they're spoiled or they're trying to push your buttons. They're legitimately having things come online, like emotions and physical sensations that are overwhelming to their nervous system, right? And they're like, oh my God, let's freak out right now. And as a parent, like all you need to know is like all your job is basically to connect with that kid. Connection before correction, I like to say, to like give them tools so that eventually when they're in their 20s, they can start doing it more by themselves. Right. And the most frustrating part, I think, about being a parent, which by the way, I think is the hardest fucking job there is. Hopefully we can cuss on this podcast. Yeah. And if you've got more than one kid, it's like, okay, times that by 2, 3, 4, however many you have, is because essentially what they're doing is parenthood, in my opinion, is because you have a prefrontal lobe. They don't. You are constantly borrowing that to them over and over and over and over and over again. And a lot of times for the same things, right? And what I see is like, there's like this expectation of where kids should be when really realistically, it's like throw all that out the window and let's just look at like where they're at. And like, can we meet them where they're at over and over again and take away the shame for you and for them? Because when you think about it, and like what I see most of the time is like a lot of times we hold the bar like up here and our kids' capacity is only right here. And then we're in this like constant disconnect of them never being able to achieve that. Right. And like that, because kids are egocentric, meaning like, I mean, you've got 4, right? How many times it's like, maybe you think or even say it out loud, like, hey dude, the world doesn't revolve around you. Right. That's just how kids are. So if something goes on for them and they're like, wait a second, I can't do this. They expect me to do it. I'm trying my hardest and I can't do it. It's like that can turn into like internalized shame, which can like sound like, hey, I'm just not good enough. And that's like an internal belief that they have without understanding that it's there. And with all good intentions as an adult and as a parent, like that's something that we have the potential to set up for our kids. And that has nothing to do with like harsh parent or soft parent. It's just being appropriate for where they're at. Because where I see it getting confused, especially online, is like, oh, like that's what's creating like the coddling. That's creating this soft society, all this stuff. And it's like, that doesn't mean that you like can't hold firm boundaries, right? And my whole philosophy is like, I think of it like weightlifting, right? Because everybody's like, you know, like the world's tough and the world's hard. So you got to like, you know, prepare your kids for that, which is true, right? But when you think about weightlifting, like you guys work out, like we were just talking about his shoulders this morning.
Yeah.
Like, are you under tension 7 days a week? You know, 24/7, 365.
I prefer not to be, but you know, that's all how it moved Miss Alford's in.
Right. It's like what we need is like, we need catabolic and anabolic. So you need to be broken down. But like what you actually need more than being broken down is proper rest, recovery, and nutrition so that you can rebuild and get stronger. They don't call it catabolic steroids. They call them anabolic steroids for a reason. And so if the world is tough and the world is hard, and that's a fact, it's like, well, you want your home environment to be the opposite of that and be like a soft place for them to land, a place for them to like be able to sort out all the hard shit that's out there. And it's like, when you think about it, like, what are most people afraid of? Failing.
Yeah.
Like,
Judgment,
what are people
failing.
what are people going to think about me? Right. So if you create an environment where it's like, hey, failing's cool. And it's like, it's more about like building you up. It's like, well, how much more likely do you think your kids are going to be resilient to want to go try shit in the outside world if like the place that they're coming home to is this like awesome rest and recovery resort, if you will, and they get decade or 2 decades of that before they actually go out into the real world, as opposed to like having the crap being out of them in the real world, at school, all that stuff, and then having that like basically flipped at home.
Yeah.
So anyways, that was like a long
I love that.
tangent
And I'm going to go down that road a little bit if we're going to talk about men. But the parenting, a lot of men that listen, and myself, Chris, one day maybe, you know, he gets out of singlehood. But, you know, we'll be fathers. It's the balance of knowing, like, I love the, like you said, you know, holding to the higher, you know, too high a standard they can ever meet. It's hard to know what that barometer is when you have smart kids that do have a good home and have a lot of benefits that others don't, and wanting to hold them and know, you know, I don't think most reasonable parents want to be higher than they can possibly live up to. But you also don't want to be half of that, because I'll also use the gym thing and say, if, you know, your max rep is, you know, 300 pounds and you go and do 80 every time, you're never going to get better. So how do you find, I know every kid's different, but how do you find what's the right level given the situation?
Yeah. I mean, that's a great question. And it goes back to like, what's appropriate for the age. Right.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know, and you see it all, like, especially in sports nowadays, we're like age 5 and like parents are like, my kid is going to be the next, whatever, NBA, NFL, MLB star, basically. Yeah. And it's like, okay, what is that really about?
Yeah.
Right.
It's
and like,
about them and not the kid.
Yeah.
Know, or
and
something.
Like, right. And like, ultimately, even in like like whenever I work with men, like I don't even like mostly focus on like tactics, because like what I focus on is like what is coming up in you in that moment that is making it so difficult to watch your son or your daughter kind of struggle or have a hard time or complain or whine, right, about the thing that maybe they're getting that you didn't get, right, when you were a kid, and that is like bringing something up in you.
Yeah.
And
there's a lot of that with me. I'll just be honest.
Well, there's a lot of that in all of us, and there's a good reason for that. And like, again, getting to the root of it, there's like something that triggers subconsciously in your system that sends a signal up to your brain that sets you in a certain state, which like maybe makes you more irritable, maybe makes you say something in a way that's not quite as understanding or like compassionate or like as graceful, right? Because a lot of times it's like we have those experiences to compare to, and our kids are going through them the first time. And it's like, if we get caught up in that loop with our own internals, it's like a lot of times like we project that onto our kids, and our kids just don't even know any better, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so like
totally.
there's a post that I put out. It's like, maturing as a father is like realizing that it's less about like controlling your kids' behavior and more about like controlling your own, basically.
Yeah.
And like a lot of that, in everything, when you think about being a father or mother, is like, how often do your kids do what you tell them to do versus like what you model for them?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
No, it makes total sense. And
I
it's
don't
right.
know.
Like, cause we get told, I mean, I'll brag on my kids a little bit. We get told we have really good kids.
Yeah.
And we don't have to tell them 95% of that.
Mm-hmm.
They just do it.
Yeah.
You know, and it's not because we get it all right, but I think we get more of the right than we get wrong. And I think, but you're absolutely 100. You nailed it. I mean, it's like, I even go, cause they don't believe me. I go, I didn't have to tell them to do that.
Yeah.
They just know, they know the standard.
Yeah.
But I do struggle, and we'll put this to bed and go talk about some men stuff. And it is really to men stuff because it's father stuff, but I think it is internal versus them. But it's just fascinating to me as a father, and you're so smart, Jason. I really dig you. It's when you know you have highly intelligent children that are very athletic.
Mm-hmm.
This is the struggle. My wife and I both played college ball. Like, you know, she played D1. I had scholarship offers and blew my ankle out. So I usually carry that a little too far.
Yeah.
I should have played college ball. She did play college ball. And you know, like our 8-year-old, he turns 9 next month, is the best player in his league.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't know it, but he is.
Yeah.
And it's the struggle of, I'm not wanting to push him because I care if he has 100 points that game. I really don't.
Yeah.
Because I have another son who might have been the top 10 worst in the league at that age. And I was fine with it. I knew exactly what I had. I didn't try to make him score 30 points. You know, so it wasn't about me, but it was more, I don't want to see him squander like that ability. That's the struggle for me.
Sure.
You know, and I think it probably made for some men that I think hopefully have some self-awareness and are past the trying to live vicariously through their children. I don't need to, my wife and I don't need to live vicariously through our children. We did it, you know?
Yeah.
So we just want what's best for them using their best abilities. And I think that's a little bit of a hard knowing, you know, telling them how good they are and giving them confidence. And then, but what do you expect? You want them to want it too.
Yeah, no. And that is the hardest part, Ryan, 100%. Cause like, even that, like squandering their abilities, it's like in a small way presupposes that like we know what they really, really want for themselves. And like, I even think about it as like my son's 2, right? And I played baseball, I played college ball, and then I fell in love with jiu-jitsu. I'm a jiu-jitsu black belt now. And I'm like, fuck, I hope he likes jiu-jitsu. I hope he likes to shoot guns, right? Yeah. And I'm like, I'm very prepared to expose him to that. And also like, I'm really in check, or at least I'm trying to be in check with the part of me that like wants that for him. Right. Cause like I can tell my son is smart and intelligent and all these things. And I'm like, well, wouldn't it be cool if he used all that and funneled it over to here to the thing that I really like to do too? So we can have this special bond together.
So we could go do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I need another buddy.
So I mean, most of that is just like having awareness to it. Like you said, like it sometimes like, I don't know, like just the idea of like, I think it's still not a common thing for people to know that that is like possible for them to do. What I mean by that is like project their desires onto their kids. Like, oh, I'm not doing that. right?
Yeah. No,
And it's like,
yeah. I guess, and I think that's where it's like, if you don't do that to some degree, are you parenting? Like, yeah. Because there's a fine line between projecting and teaching.
Yeah.
Coaching and projecting. Like there's a fine line there, right?
Totally. And it all depends on like what you see your job as a parent, I guess, is what it boils down to. Because I
see myself as a coach, Jason.
Yeah.
I woke up the cheesiest.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like the commercial says.
Yeah. And to a degree you are. It's like you're your kid's first coach a lot of times in a lot of things. And you're like, to me, it's like you're the coach of like, hey, look at all this cool shit out here in the world. It's like, what of these things are you like super excited about? Because like there's going to be a natural, I think, propensity for son, daughter, whatever, to want to be like dad or be like mom. That's why like ultimately, and there's studies on this about like your fitness level and your kid's fitness level. Like there's going to be a correlation there. And like to the degree that your son or daughter like hops on and like falls in love with that, I think is like part of it is like the luck of the draw in a lot of ways. Cause like, even like, think about it, like the people that are the greatest, like of all time. And I don't even know if I want to say names because there's so much controversy about it. Right. But like you think about Tiger Woods, you think about like LeBron, MJ, Tom Brady, like basically their parents didn't need to tell them, but also told them. And like a lot of times, like they're the 1% of the 1% who was obsessed with it, and they were born with like natural talent, all this stuff. It's already like such like a small needle in a haystack that people get there. But like when you actually look at like the guys, like holistically their lives from like being the best of the best, not a lot of great like relationships, like family life, not so great. Like there's major sacrifice that comes with that. That being said, like I got a lot from sports, like kept me out of trouble. It was a great confidence, friends, right? But I also like know that like there was like some like performance stuff there where it's like being good was my way of like making myself feel good. And when I didn't play well, it's like, well, I didn't feel so great about myself then. And there's like some fear of failure that crept in about like not trying other things maybe that I wasn't so good at. So, I mean, to your point, like I think it's about exposure, and like naturally I think your kids are going to gravitate towards stuff that you like to do, generally speaking.
Yeah. And I think it tends to work itself out if you give like the guardrails, so to speak, but you've got enough room on the sides for them to explore.
Yeah.
Yeah,
for sure.
I think that's sort of what it is. Talking with Jason Schnitzer. He is men's relationship coach, husband, father, black belt. He's going to chop us right. Judo chop, like whatever it's called. I always, when I see black belt, Jason, this is how unsophisticated I am in the arts of martial arts and all that stuff. I mean, I grew up the karate, the Karate Kid was my reference point.
That's right.
And if you aren't crane kicking somebody in the face, I don't even know if you're a black belt.
So true.
Which is probably like the worst move ever. It takes too long probably to execute, and like who knows? But Cobra Kai came back.
Yeah, Cobra Kai did come back. And
Never dies.
Jiu-jitsu is like a grappling martial art as opposed to striking.
That's
so
what I'd be better at. I think I'm 6'5", 270. So I think I'm more of the fights at the bar. I'm just choking somebody out on the ground.
Yeah,
like
that's
settle down, buddy.
Yeah,
smother them.
Yeah, it's like and it's fun to do that, and you can do it like full bore as opposed to like I don't love the idea of getting punched in the face and stuff like
who does?
Like,
no, I avoid that at all costs.
Yeah, no,
and I don't even really. I mean, I've done it. We've all done it. Unfortunately, a lot of us probably not, but like. Yeah, not a good way to fight. So grappling it is. Jason, talk to us about your approach. We went right. We went straight to the high dive. Like a kid.
Yeah.
We were going to go jump in, wade in the kiddie pool. We were going to wade in, Chris. We were going to wade in. We went to the high dive. We went straight down. We got it deep. We went the deep end. We're in a hurry, which I like. It's about substance.
Yeah.
Jason, talk to me about how you're helping men. Some of the biggest challenges you're seeing, the gaps that we talked about at the beginning, and some of those outcomes you're seeing with the guys you're working with?
Yeah. I mean, that's a great question. Like the thing about like a relationship, right? And like just, I'm in a vast generalization about men right now, right? Is like, we don't get a lot of practice navigating the emotional field, right? So like you could think about it like, okay, if a relationship requires you like let's talk about football, let's say for example, to like run, throw, catch, all the skills to be able to be a successful part of a football team, let's just say. It's like most women get the chance to like practice those skills for most of their life before they go to the Super Bowl, aka get married and be in a long-term relationship, right? Have kids, mortgages, all this stuff. Whereas like most men like don't. So it's like we're going to the Super Bowl and we haven't like run the routes, or we haven't like thrown the ball or run the ball. And like a lot of times we only know like a few different plays, and we're almost expected to have a full playbook with this other teammate that we are choosing, right? And a lot of times that like might manifest itself in like, hey, like when I'm in a relationship and there's a conflict, I'm avoiding it, right? Or like I shut down, or like when I get upset, I raise my voice. And, like my response, the only response that I seem to have is like anger or shut down. And, over time, there's like an erosion factor that happens with your wife. And that like, sometimes it's like, oh, like you stop bringing things up because it's almost like you already know the thing that's going to play out. Right. And that starts building resentment, and then can have contempt and, defensiveness, stonewalling, all that stuff. There's the Gottman Institute talks about that as the 4 horsemen that start showing up in your relationships. That's like signs of inevitable, divorce. Right. And like, really, what I help men do is get to the root of like how to navigate your own internal experience about like what's going on for you. Right. Because like a lot of times, like, your wife will be like, what's going on for you? Like, how are you doing? How you feel? Fine. Right. And it's like, fine, or I'm upset. And there's like not a lot of nuance of like in between. And it's not because like we don't have the experiences of like a wide range of emotions, but it's like, shit, we never got any practice. And there's a lot of reasons for that, just generationally speaking. I don't know about you guys, but it's not like there's a lot of spaces where dudes were like, hey, like, can you help me process this thing that happened? I was kind of sad about. And it's like, what did you say? You're sad? Don't be a pussy, bro. Like what? Like, don't suck it up. Right.
I think I said that to Chris yesterday. Sorry, Chris. I apologize.
And like what I see, just like a certain level of that, going back to like how you raise your kids, of like being like a tough mindset, is like super beneficial, because then you're like, okay, fuck it. Doesn't matter how I feel. I'm going to do it anyways, which then what happens gets really, really rewarded in a lot of ways, especially in business, right? If you can fuck it, I don't care how I feel, I'm going to do it anyways. Well, then you end up being able to do like the basic thing that nobody else wants to do over a long period of time. And then you get successful, you get monetarily rewarded for that. And
Jason, you're reading my life history.
Yeah, man. Well, it's like, it's a common thing. And then like the thing is like that does not translate to a relationship, because we take what we know and what we're really good at and what is effective. And especially like if we're in a position where it's like we own the company, or like we're up there, whatever, it's like that works really well. And people actually seek you out for that ability. And then you get in a relationship and you seemingly find the person who like doesn't believe anything that you say. Right. And that can be like really frustrating and hard to navigate. And like also too, it's like we get really fucking good at solving problems and paid for it. And the bigger problems we solve, the more money we get paid. And like we take that and we try to like apply that to a relationship. And then like we end up hearing things from our wives like, can you just listen? Like, can you just like not try to fix my problem right now and just listen to me? And we're like, what are you talking about? Like, have you ever seen that meme, like joke, like It's Not About the Nail. It's like a YouTube video where this.
Yeah. I don't remember every part of it. I remember sort of the whole analogy or whatever it was about it. Yes.
Yeah. Like for the listeners, it's like it's a funny skit where the woman has a nail in her forehead and she's like, my head hurts. And the guy's like, maybe just pull the nail out. Right. And she's like, you're not listening to me. Right. Not about the nail. And that is the world of like emotion, where it's like 90% of what's going on for most people is like an emotional experience that doesn't need to be solved. And like we go into it trying to solve that. And it's like we're just missing each other. And it's not for like, and the sad part is, and what breaks my heart is like most of the guys that I work with, it's like they love their wives. Like they are trying and they're trying and trying and trying and trying. And it's like, but like what she's asking you to do is throw a pass and you keep on trying to run the ball to her. Right. And it's like, there's just a missing pages in our playbook that we never learned, unless you were like in the 0.001% of having parents to be able to like teach you like this stuff. And like, the thing is like what happens is like at a basic biological level is like you get into a conflict or even think about a conflict and it basically shifts your nervous system into a state of fight or flight. And like, we're in a reactive state as opposed to like a calm state to where we can just like hear, listen, not take that on for ourselves. Right. Instead, like our wife's stressed out, we get stressed out. Right. Okay. But if I solve this problem, then all of a sudden the stress goes away from me, versus like my wife's stressed out. I know, like, I'm not going to get stressed out. I'm going to be like the lighthouse in this storm because my system is regulated and I don't have to take on this emotion as my own. There's a separation there and I can just be there in it. And then usually fucking problem solves itself. Right. And it's like, hey, do you need me to solve a problem right now? Or do you just want me to listen? Right. That solves like 90% of most guys' problems, and kind of where we start as we're working on understanding like what is like ticking them into like a fight or flight response or a shutdown response. And in most cases, it all has to do with the wiring of your nervous system. And when you can rewire it, so that basically your responses are, we'll call it appropriate, meaning like, hey, my wife, she's bringing up something and I'm just like perceiving it as like an attack or a criticism. And like, I want to fight. I have this feeling like I want to fight, or so much so I just want to shut down. And it's like, okay, 6'5", 270. If I had to bet money, probably you're going to win that fight. Right. So like, we can agree that that's maybe not an appropriate response for your wife being upset because you didn't take the trash out. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like, when you work on that, all of a sudden it's like seeing the Matrix, because it's not because there's anything wrong with you. It's just like, dude, we just didn't have the skills, or we weren't taught these skills to be able to like navigate these things. But like, again, we were in a lot of ways expected to, because our wife is like, why don't you know how to do this? In a lot of ways. Right.
Do you so Jason, like, question, I would assume, and I guess I know the answer to this, but I still want to ask you so that I don't just assume something. So like, going down everything you just said, if you decide that you don't want to, the channels are here, and you just think it's ridiculous to come to this channel, you just need to be alone.
Well, I mean,
because like, there's some irrationality in the, neither, if we can agree, neither are right or wrong, generally speaking. I mean, sometimes there's arguments and there's a clear right or wrong, we know that, but like, to the pattern that you're discussing, if you're a guy that just cannot get to that path because you just think it's dumb, it's not worth it, does it mean you're either not in love or you need to be alone?
That's a funny and good question. And the thing is like, it's really not even about being right or wrong. And like, you're playing the wrong, you're playing the game with the wrong goal. Cause like, in a disagreement, the goal isn't to be right or wrong. It's to understand the other person's perspective. And that's the win. Because a lot of times, like, when you're in a disagreement, there's emotion involved. And guess what? There's no fucking logic in emotion. That's where the oil and water is like, you're trying to solve a logical like problem. But the problem is like, if there's dysregulation in someone's system, it kicks their prefrontal off. So they're in a reactive emotional state and they're going to be saying some outlandish shit. Right. So if you're reacting to what is, then it's like, yeah, you're going to be like, what the fuck? You don't make sense for shit. Like, that's not right. I took the trash out. Like, you never take the trash out. I'm like, bullshit. I did it 9 out of the last 10 times. I just didn't do it this one time. And if you get caught in that, that's when there's this, right? Yep. And if you want to be right, it's like, yeah, you're going to end up alone because it's going to create problems. But here's the thing. If you don't look in the mirror and clean up your 50%, right? And start to recognize like, oh, okay, this isn't about this. It's about something that's underneath that. There's emotions going on there. You're going to end, and like, let's just say you blame the person you're with, right? It's not my fault. She's the crazy one, which might be true, right? You're going to end up in the same spot in your next relationship, period. Because you're going to be attracted to a feminine woman. Guess what? Feminine women are emotional. It's not a knock. That's just like an energy that is like emotions. They like ebb and flow. Like you can feel one way. You ever like, and like, again, I'm just like vastly stereotyping. You're like, hey, babe, what do you want to eat? I don't know. Right. Or are you hungry? Right. And it's like, no, but then you order something and then like they want some. And it's like, I asked you. Right. Yeah. And it's, again, it's not about that. And when you can see it through a different lens, like I said, see the matrix, then all of a sudden it's like, you can notice your response to that emotion. And it's her emotion that triggers you. And then your brain goes off and you just start to try to figure out this logically, and you're just missing each other. Yeah. Instead of being able to meet them where they're at and know that it's not about you. And like the work is understanding and trying to understand why you make it about you. And if you don't figure that out, the thing about relationships are they're like mirrors, right? The thing you love about somebody turns into the thing you can't fucking stand about somebody. And again, you either work through that or you repeat it. I mean, like, how many guys do you know that get into relationships? This is like a 2-pronged question, right? And all of a sudden turn into somebody that like they're unrecognizable. Like, you are a different human now, dude. What is going on? Or get out of a relationship with somebody who's like, she was the worst, right? And then get back into a relationship with the exact same person in a different body. Yeah. Right. There's biological.
It's all of us.
But it's biologically appropriate. There's like when we get into a relationship, like that honeymoon stage, it's called emotional symbiosis. And you get hit with a cocktail of shit that basically lets you have your partner do no wrong.
Yes.
Until it's like, I can't stand this person, basically. Yeah. And then you're like, you get to a point where one or both people are like, hey, I can't do this anymore. And that's the part where it's like, it's a beautiful opportunity to be like, what's going on here? Or like the relationship ends and the cycle repeats.
Yeah. It made me think of this meme.
Emotional damage.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's what I thought that's what you're about to say. Emotional damage.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing is like, that's like all of us to a degree have some sort of that going on. And it's like, it impacts like our decisions, and we don't know that it's going on until we have awareness to it. And a lot of times we don't get awareness to it until shit gets really bad. And like you hit a form of rock bottom or midlife crisis or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. But I was actually even going deeper on you, Jason. You answered it perfectly, but I was going deeper. Like when you know and are self-aware of both sides, those waves, but you just don't want to fucking go there.
Yeah.
like it's compromise, but you don't want to compromise. Like not to be right.
Yeah.
But just to not because you don't, is that just okay? You need to be alone.
Well, I mean, like,
you know what I'm saying? I mean,
for sure.
You know, like it's not because I have to be right. I know what she wants, she needs, and I need to be right. Not that I need to be right. I just don't want to fucking go there.
Yeah. I mean, and you're going to repeat that. That's the whole point, is like, until you find the woman that like you want to go there for, right? Or
Yeah.
you get like, or like you're in a relationship, and a lot of times it's like, maybe you don't want to go there for that woman, but then you have kids and you're like, shit. Well, if I'm not going to do it for me, I should do it for them so they can see how to do this. Right. And that's where like a lot of guys kind of like meet me, is like, I'm not sure if I'm at the point where I can save my relationship, but this is something that I know that's been there that I want to fix. I want to do it for my kids. And if my relationship gets saved in the process, then that's cool too. But like, I'm done blaming other people. Like, and it's like, all I can do is like control me and look in the mirror. And I think like every man has to have that talk with himself at some point in their life, and like get past the like, it's them. And like, okay, what part of me doesn't want to go there right now, and why? Why is this a pattern that I can't do? And a lot of times where it's rooted is that shit's uncomfortable to look at. And that is like, there's some stuff that comes up for us that has us avoiding that. And a lot of times that stuff is like what I'm talking about. Like, we never had a chance to like work through, or we were in it alone and we never developed the tools or the skills to navigate it. And it's called like affect phobia, basically, where we're afraid of feeling feelings is what that is. And it's really funny because like I talk about this a lot, because like guys will be like, oh, you're such a pussy. Like, don't be such a pussy. Like with like being sad or something like that. And like, what's funny is like the guys that say that, it's like oftentimes they're too afraid to feel sadness or fear. Yeah. And they're just saying that, like going back to like projection, it's a projection of not being able to sit with somebody that's going through something hard. So, I mean, to your point, it's like, yeah, I mean, you probably should be single until you're ready to like, fucking marriage is the most activating shit you're ever going to go through. And there's like a lot of times where you're like questioning, maybe even if you've chosen the right person, which I think is like a part of the process, because like every step you take, it's like you're getting forced to like dig deeper within you. And it's like, there's no other thing I think that's going to pressure test you like that, because basically a lot of people make the decision to get married when they're in that state of like, this is all really great. And it's kind of like checking the box for your like iPhone update, where you're like, I don't fucking like, this is too good to let go. Right. I'm just going to accept and go with whatever is. And you're agreeing to rules that you like didn't discuss. Right. And 5-10 years down the road, you're like, what the fuck is going on here?
Yeah.
It's like, well, you never talked about it. You didn't care.
Yeah, exactly. And you didn't have the issues that, everything hunky-dory when you got no kids.
Right.
And like, if you're affluent, you got 2 money-making people or whatever. And then everything goes south, or then not south. It's just more complex.
It gets way more complex.
You can't mimic the complexities. I mean, you can live together. That helps maybe.
Yeah.
But the complexities that come over time, what's the some of the outcomes? And Chris, jump in here. I'm kind of taking over with Jason. I came right in. He's the father and the
game. I'm just saying like, yep.
Yeah. I mean, I think he's hitting on all the chords. Like being dudes. I mean, we've talked about these things, and that's the men are from Venus. Was it Venus and Mars thing? Women are from Venus. Men are from Mars. I mean,
right.
There's a lot of truth. Chris, do you have any questions for Jason?
Yeah, I'll make a few comments too. I think I love what you're doing. I literally had a conversation right before we got on with a buddy of mine that probably needs to call you. But talking about getting down to the root of things, right? And that no one tells us how to do these things. We kind of observe, right? But I'm like, what taught me? Movies, probably, right?
Yeah. Rom-coms.
Right. Like The Notebook. That was what we see as like, that's love, that's relationship.
Yeah.
And, even for myself, I think I may be an advantage having a couple long-term relationships that I've had to evolve through. Right. Yeah. But I've gotten much better now. And I said this to my friend. I said, dude, you're repeating your mom and dad,
Dude.
literally to a T.
Dude.
Like, and it's a hard conversation, right? Because
The hardest.
you don't want to blatantly say, hey, history is repeating itself in real time. We're watching this. But the whole basis of our conversation was, you got to look at you, bro.
Yeah,
Nothing will change unless you don't change you and how you present to the world. So with that being said, I want to ask you, what was the root of this for you? Like, what made you lean into this work and, you know, do what you're doing now?
Yeah, I love that question. And before I answer, I'd love to just like piggyback on like what you just said, because your friend's really lucky to have you, Chris, because that's essentially what we do without knowing that we're doing it, is repeat cycles. And there's a saying, it's like your nervous system will choose into a familiar hell over an unfamiliar heaven. So as bad as like you like maybe have all the best intentions of like not being your dad and not repeating your cycle, unless you look in the mirror, like that is what is going to happen. That's just how it works. Right. And like, I mean, a lot of what I do is like flicking guys in the nuts to get them to see that. And like, that's like sometimes what it takes to like really get somebody to a point to look in the mirror. And to answer your question, it's like, that's exactly what happened to me. Like I was at a point where it's like, I had checked off all the boxes. Like I'm making the money. I'm in shape. Like I'm doing all the things. Like I've got my morning routine. It's like, we've got investment properties. We're driving the cars. Like, why do I feel the way that I'm feeling? And I blamed everybody. And I saw myself like basically reenacting my parents' relationship that ended in divorce. And it got to a point where it's like push came to shove. And like, we were at that crossroads of like, are we going to do this anymore? And I'm like, I can't put my head on the pillow without at least knowing that deep down I did everything that I could to be able to like make this work and like to clean up my side of the street basically. And, you know, did all the hours of like talk therapy and stuff like that. And it wasn't until like I got this, I understood what was going on with like this root cause nervous system stuff that really started moving the needle. Because until then it was like, we'd show up with the couples counselor, we get good work done. But like, then we were at home. It's like, shit wasn't working. It's like, can we get the counselor on the phone and have this fucking conversation? Like, what the hell's going on? Right. Well, I learned, and like, this is why I love this approach, because I take men in logically. I'm like, here's how your shit works, right? Your brain talks to your body and your body talks to your brain. Makes sense, right? Do you know how that happens? That information travels up and down a nerve, basically. It's called your vagus nerve, right? And okay, not a trick question, but if I'll ask you guys, if you divide your body from your neck to the top of your head or your neck all the way down, like what's physically bigger?
Yeah.
Not a trick question.
Yeah. Below.
Yeah.
Right.
Your body,
Yeah.
like not even close. Right. So not so coincidentally, that pathway of communication is skewed in favor of body to brain, right? To the tune of 80%. Okay. So like you can be cognitively smart. You can be great under pressure, problem solving, right? But like if it's 80 versus 20, who eventually wins that fight? The 80, right? And what this might look like is like, you could be at work all day, high pressure situations, let's say, and you're just like locked in and it's like nothing phases you. And you get home and all of a sudden the smallest thing fucking triggers you and you go from 0 to 100 and you're like, what the fuck? Right? That's because you have cognitively been fighting off everything below your neck, any feelings that you've had all day, because you can't be taken out by your emotions when you're in business or in high stakes negotiation. You're having to make hard decisions. You don't want to make emotional decisions, right? That's basically the skill that we've been honing our whole life. Fuck how you feel. Do it anyways. And when you get home, that 80%'s like, haha, gotcha now. Right. And that usually doesn't manifest in ways that are beneficial for a marriage or a long-term relationship. So the cool part is like, once you get that shit under control, all of a sudden 80% works along with 20%. When you have that emotional response to whatever it is, right, it actually like doesn't get out of control and you don't need to be like overriding it per se. Right. And when you can learn how to do that, how that manifests like for you positively, when you're talking, Ryan, about like the outcomes you get, it's like, well, like most of the guys that I work with, it's like, I just want to like feel more at peace, right? I just want to be able to like be chill when I'm at home and not feel like I have to fucking be on my phone, or I like have to like go look at what's the next car I'm going to buy. Or like when we're on vacation, I want to actually be present. Right. And like a lot of guys that I work with, it's like they've gotten to the place, but like they're not like, I can't actually even fucking enjoy the stuff that I've worked so hard. And that is ultimately, in my belief, is like your nervous system basically being like, can't stop, keep going. Right. And there's a good reason for that. And once you just learn how to like basically calm that down, it's like all of a sudden, like what your family wants, what your wife wants, what your friends want, really what you want is to be able to just be present, right? But truly be present in what is. That could be like the craziness and the chaos, right? Or just chilling on a Sunday. But, you know, that's like what gets the most likes on my Instagram is presence. Chicks dig that stuff.
Is Jason, talk to me. When I hear you talk, I'm going to put words in your mouth and you can take them out. I'm hearing fix the man to fix the whole relationship. And I mean, couples counseling, great, but the man's got to get fixed and everything's good.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I know you're a men's coach, not a women's coach. And I'm not looking, this is not Ryan going, the damn woman's problem. That's not where this is coming from. Yeah. It's more though. And you know what? And I actually do think it sort of starts there. So like, I'm not even like fighting it, but I am trying to just kind of play. I'm the foil of the story.
Absolutely love that. Cause that's like I think the worst rap that it is. It's like, if only the guy, then, and like, that's what you hear a lot of women saying. And I'm like, well, fucking careful what you ask for. Cause here's what I think plays out the most. And this is generalizing. You guys ever heard the term like happy wife, happy life?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. To me, that's like the guy not existing. So like when I say careful what you ask for, what happens is like in a lot of ways, what we do is we just say yes without like really like checking in with ourselves. Cause the fact is we don't know how to check in with ourselves and like what we want, what we don't want. We just want to make you happy. And like when you can't and like most of the time, in my opinion, men aren't bringing themselves to the relationship. Right. And they're like, I'm doing all this stuff and they don't see it. And then she's like, he doesn't like listen to me. Right. And there's this miss. And that's because like, you don't even know what you fucking want because you don't know what's going on in here. And you're looking to just like make her happy. Right. So when you get this shit organized internally, like it gives you the skills to know what's going on. And then guess what? Include yourself in the relationship. And a lot of times that's like, maybe you need to set boundaries. Maybe like, it's like the fixing of the guy, the leading. It's like really getting and sorting out like what you want, right? What's my purpose? Like, where do I want to go? What direction I want to go? And I don't care what she says in a lot of ways because I'm going there, right? I want you to come along with, right? And like having an opinion and a say in something, not just because like, that's what she wants. Right. And that's what I see a lot is like, it's not a fixing. It's like a becoming more whole of who you are. And this work isn't about like improving who you are and like being better. It's like, I think truly for so many of us, we get so disconnected from like who we are as men because we never get an opportunity to figure out what that really is because we're too busy trying to fit in or like be accepted by the group or the team or whatever it is. We get like completely lost. And like to your point, Chris, about like, okay, what's the example? It's like you see all these movies, these sitcoms and people saying like happy wife, happy life. It's being reinforced that we need to like externally make everybody okay. And we need to do that by providing and being this like fucking dude where we like don't even know what the fuck we like. Right. So it's like diving in and becoming more of who you really are. And in that process, it's like a real healing process. The fixing is like you become more of you and you show up that way and include yourself more. And that in and of itself has a propensity to like heal a lot of the relationship. And again, not to say that it's all on the guy either. Like everybody has their own work to do there for sure. But that's a really good question, Ryan.
Yeah. It's a two-way street, but I mean, I also have, I don't know if it's old school, but I mean, I do think, the man's the leader of the house, at least what I believe. And so if the leader's fucked, then, everything else is, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So, you're talking about like self-leadership. Like if we can't lead ourselves, right? It's like, how are we going to lead our families? So, and it's like, you can't lead yourself without knowing who you are. And if you've spent your whole life trying to be somebody else because you're either trying to impress your parents, impress your friends, impress girls, whatever it is, like you're never going to truly look in the mirror and be like, fuck, I like that guy right there. That self-respect, that self-leadership, like that comes from like figuring your shit out.
Yep.
Yeah.
Jason, how do people start working with you, get in touch with you, all those good things?
Yeah, man. I hang out on Instagram, basically Jason Schnitzer Coaching. So you can hit me up on there. I offer a free like discovery call. If you like what you heard today or you like my shit on Instagram, you can book a call and like we can chat, see what's going on for you. And if we're a good fit, we can talk about like what working together looks like. Yeah.
Love it. Hey man, really like your approach. Smart guy.
Yeah.
And
thanks.
Helping a lot of people. A lot of gaps out there for this, man. So proud of you for doing it and helping a lot of guys.
Yeah, thanks. Brick by brick.
Yep. Chris, any final words today?
Hey man, I just appreciate what you're doing, and I'm excited to see the impact that guys like you're going to have on the future. I think it's going to have a huge compounding effect. It'll be a great thing.
Yeah, man. Totally agree. And use that as fuel to keep moving forward.
Hey guys, you know where to find us, vibescience.com. We have all the links to our podcast site with all the information. We'll have all of Jason's stuff there as well. Show notes, highlight clips, everything from today. Look, we don't have all the answers. We're just trying to empower you to solve it for yourself. Take you to your highest vibe. It's mind, body, energy here on Vibe Science. We'll see you next time.
The content discussed on this show is provided for reference and educational purposes. The content is not an attempt to practice medicine or provide specific medical advice. Always consult your personal physician for medical advice and proper diagnosis.
Thanks for listening. This is Vibe Science. To learn more or watch full episodes, visit vibesciencepodcast.com. Here's to discovering your highest vibe.